Welcome to On the Chain. This is Jeff here with co-host
Chip.
Chip. What is going on, Chip? Today we are going to get into XRP, 1 million drops, life changing. You got to start somewhere. Why not start at the beginning? What do you say, Chip?
I say let's do it. Let's go.
Let's go.
Welcome to On the Chain.
How about those? Hey, well,
It's like, whoa, what the hell?
whoa.
Yeah, you got to start. Jeff, it's so funny. Like 1 million drops. Everybody
1 million.
needs 1 million drops of XRP. You know why? Because you got to start somewhere.
That's
So,
right.
and everyone
1
who's
million drops.
1 million drops, which is, Jeff, translate that for everybody. How much is 1 million drops exactly?
One single XRP.
Right. You start with one.
Start with one.
And you get another one. And then you get another one. And then you move this asset in, and then this digital asset. And that's how you start stacking, right? But, we're going to come down to a point of where we're going to talk about it in drops. The way they talk about it with sats, right? So you've got your Satoshis are known as sats. Those are that's how you break down a Bitcoin, right? You call them Satoshis, and then they're better known as sats. And that's how we're going to talk about XRP.
Right.
We're going to talk about it like drops. It's going to cost droplets because one XRP is going to be worth a lot of money, right? 100, 200, 300,000. You're not going to talk in terms of 1,000. You say, hey, that's going to be X amount of drops, 32 drops, right? And you're like, that's
right.
Cool. I have 1 million.
Imagine that. The
I'm
cost
good.
of that transaction was 10 drops.
Right. 10 drops. And, it's a couple hundred drops. 100,000 drops, whatever, but you're like, I have 1 million. I'm good.
Now, what do you think? If you compare the verbiage, the terminology, drops versus a Satoshi
Or sats, as they're, known
or
as.
sats,
Yeah.
better known as.
Better known as, yeah. I like drops. Drops is cool, man. It's like the Ripple, the drops. Throw me some drops. Give me the drops, Jeff. Throw me the drops. It's kind of a cool thing. But really, we're going to talk about it in those denominations, because when it becomes a 3-figure, a 4-figure, people are like, oh, it can never happen. Well, if you were paying attention last week when we were showing you how all the money and what all the money looks like, the drop in the bucket right now is exactly what we have in crypto right now. It's nothing. It's not almost non-existent. That's how small it is.
The whole space is just a drop.
Yeah, kind of is a drop. It's like in the grand scheme of things. So when you think about moving all the money, today we had, June 28th was Basel III Day, which in Europe, look, the banks have to, they've got to back it up. Got the gold reserves? Let's see them. No more of this, shell game where you got to pony up.
Our gold into drops.
Gold has to be there, man. And if it's not there, some banks are going to become insolvent. That's just what's going to happen. So you got to have some kind of clarity when it comes to reality checks every once in a while. Like, what's behind? Hey, you behind the curtain over there. Yeah, you Oz. Hey, what's behind the curtain? It's like, me? Who, me?
A drop.
Who, me? You peel it back. You guys don't have any gold. I feel like that's coming due for Tether. A lot of people were talking about in the chat last night, but Tether, they've just kind of been, skimming along on thin ice. Well, we're backed by gold.
A long time. Yeah,
we're backed by Bitcoin.
It was backed by dollars, and then it was gold. And then it was things of value that could be converted into dollars. And
then, the whole Bitcoin going down. I think when they bought a ton of Bitcoin when they're at like 9,000 or something like that. But again, when that comes crashing down, there's going to be, excuse the pun, Jeff, but a ripple effect. It's going to be somewhat of a ripple effect going out there. But guys, drop where you're from. I want to see the city and I want to see the country, because we always love seeing where everyone's coming in from tonight. And best thing you guys can do, please go ahead right there. See, Mr. K knows he's a droptionnaire. There you go.
Hey, so here's a good comment here. I think it's a good time. We'll pick up, grab some comments from the community right now. And this is a good one. Home-based income, better known as HBI, has asked this question. Good evening, all. Recently learned about R3. Very interesting. I want to hear what Jeff and Chip feel about it. So I'm putting that out there into the universe to see what Jeff and Chip might feel about R3.
Well,
what are your thoughts on it? R3, Corda.
Yeah, I mean, Corda Settler. I mean, look, first of all, R3 has something very, very similar in common with Ripple, and that is one of their biggest investors, or one of probably their most famous investors, is SBI, and it's gentleman's name escapes me at the moment, but he owns 9% of Ripple, and he's also an investor in R3. And why can't I think of his name, Jeff? I just don't know. Japanese fellow. The SBI CEO, someone will drop in the chat. But anyway, that's one thing they have in common. Now, a couple of years ago, they got into a little bit of a spat, right? Kind of like banging heads a little bit, like, weren't really quite getting along. They were having their own sort of look, this happens sometimes with companies. They beat their chest a little bit. They had a couple little bit disagreements about which way they would go. They kind of came to a realization at some point, but it wasn't until it came down to the wire, because they were going at it. Then they had so it was Yoshitaka Kitao, who runs SBI, who's an investor in both, said, "Hey kids, you get in that corner, SBI. We want Ripple in that corner over there. Separate, relax. We're going to settle everything." And they were suing each other, and then they kind of came to a realization, like, okay, let's patch it up. But it was really Yoshitaka Kitao that was really instrumental in making that happen. Had it not been for him, I don't know that it would have been. But part of it is, so we've had a lot of conversations that I've heard this weekend, a lot of stuff on crypto Twitter. Quincy Jones, really incredible, bright kid, making the rounds all over the place. He's talking about, apparently he's a developer for Corda, but one of the things about Corda and the Corda settler now, what from my understanding is that they don't want to use XRP. I guess it's partly built in, but what do we do know? Well, we know that XDC has partnered with them, right? So we have XDC partnering with them. And, do we really know what's 100% under the hood? I don't know that we do, but, I like XDC, and I like, obviously XRP. I like these sort of coins and what they're really trying to do out there. And if you look at XDC, it has a lot of very similar principles to XRP, yet it's lacking in some departments, right? It doesn't have the on-demand liquidity, the rails, and that stuff. But when you look at transaction speeds, when you look at other things, it's very, very, very similar. And obviously, the project is Zinfin, and that's what I do like about it. Jeff, what are your thoughts about R3? I think R3 is getting a lot of penetration, and we have a story tonight about R3 going to be doing some CBDCs with Singapore. Sort of a test bed.
One of the things that, has been brought up for a period of time, competition in the space. And, so R3, I think, is definitely onto great things, just like Ripple has an opportunity to be onto great things, just like the Stellar Foundation is onto great things, and many, many other projects that are in this kind of cross-border payment environment. And there'll be more, obviously. One of the things that came out of that whole disagreement between R3 and Ripple, and obviously we saw some changes within Corda. What was it referenced as? I don't know. Was it the Cordova or something along those lines? Their software.
The Corda settler.
Yeah, but there's something else where they started implementing digital asset and the possibility of using a digital asset, and the first one to be added was XRP. So there was never a scenario where R3 or Corda was going to exclusively use XRP. Is meant to be one of countless assets that were going to be used in their solution, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with it. And so I think sometimes, there's this desire to, read too much into things. and maybe put too much weight into one individual project, or simply because a project is using the asset. I think we need to zoom out of that intent. We really have to look at the space in general, and that's still what's going to keep us motivated in the space, and what's exciting about in general, what we're seeing across the board is you see expansion of bigger projects using the Stellar Foundation. Ripple continuously adding more and more projects utilizing or potentially utilizing the XRP ledger, potentially utilizing the ODL, on-demand liquidity. You're seeing that expand. Whereas at the same time, Arthur, if they all start succeeding around the same time, imagine what this space is going to look like, because Swift is one. It's one group, one conglomeration, 10,000 banks. So in order to tackle all 10,000 banks, you have to, verify and authenticate the potential of the solution. And now you have three primary entities that are working towards a very similar outcome, doing it a little bit differently. I think it's a net positive across the board. I like it.
Yeah, that's exactly. And JK was talking about Basel III going live as well. And I think that's going to have some interesting implications. But, look, check out a lot of projects. There are a lot of things out there. I'm just not 100% convinced that Corda, just knowing that little spat they had. Do they own XRP? They do. But I just feel like they've been searching for alternate sort of settlement. And I think that's really largely has to do with why they selected XDC as being out there. And last night we were talking about something that I wanted to play. Sometimes we run out of time. We just don't have enough. But I wanted to play something that we kind of promised that we would. So we'll play it tonight. And then you know what happens? And another night goes by and we forget. But
play it tomorrow night.
We'll play it tomorrow night, Jeff. Let's put it this way. But this is interesting here because it's a short little clip about El Salvador. But what's nice about it, you got to remember that there was a Surfside town, and I think it was over a year ago. Jeff and I covered the story before. The president of El Salvador said, like, hey, let's go in, all in on Bitcoin becoming legal tender. They started like using it in the surf town, right? And they started really converting everything. So this talks about it. Now I may stop it just because we have a podcast version of this, and there may have to like stop it at some point. So
let's break it up, and we'll kind of discuss what.
Yeah, we'll break it down. Break it down. But let's watch this because I think it's a pretty cool little tiny film here.
Highly new to El Salvador. For the last
Here we go. Ready? You hear everything?
Highly new to El Salvador. For the last 18 months or so, the tiny surf town of El Zonte has been running an experiment with Bitcoin. 3,000 people live here, and the only ATM in town is a Bitcoin ATM. Just before the president's announcement, I headed to El Zonte to see how Bitcoin is changing the community.
Necesito hacer unas compras ahorita, Marcos. Necesito $2.
Basically saying I need to do some shopping. I need to get $2 worth of eggs, onions, and a tomato. And he's kind of walking into a cafe here.
Huevo,
Well,
cebolla.
yeah. So what are your thoughts? Just to start this off, he's going in. They started this experiment. The only ATM they have is a Bitcoin ATM, which is, it's interesting because we've seen the phenomena of the Bitcoin ATMs popping up around here, and they're really geared up more towards converting fiat into Bitcoin or into whatever other asset they might have. Just on its face, without getting into it, what do you see with that? What's your
I remember when they first announced this. I remember the story about it, saying it was a surf town, had a lot of transient people, but a lot of natives as well. But one of the things they talked about was they felt like there was like this big sway that they wanted to start using Bitcoin. Right, there was this big swell surfing. Get it? So they wanted to start using, and I thought like this is interesting because how is this going to go? I was kind of thinking to myself, I don't know how this is going to go, but when I hear there's only one Bitcoin ATM. You got to remember probably a lot of it's cash. So to be able to walk around with your phone and be able to transact is probably you're bypassing all that other stuff, regular payment systems, potentially. So it's hard to know, Jeff, 100%.
Yep. All right. So let's see.
All right, let's listen in here.
Tomate, chile verde.
¿Qué más?
Chile verde.
Sí. ¿$1 también?
Sí.
¿Cómo fue la aplicación?
Bitcoin Beach.
So it's
she's saying,
interesting.
right, she's saying which app, and he's saying Bitcoin Beach. That's
Yep.
the app that he's.
So here he is shopping, shopping for his everyday stuff. She's quoting him out $1. She's saying it's $1, and he's going to pay the equivalent in Bitcoin. So as Bitcoin is appreciating, then he's getting more value for his dollar, and or so to speak, more value for his Bitcoin.
Right.
If as Bitcoin depreciates based on what he acquired it for, obviously that same dollar for eggs and peppers and whatever is going to be a little bit more expensive, unless this whole world, maybe they're getting paid in Bitcoin.
Let's listen in.
This is Milton Cabrera. He's a construction worker in El Zonte who gets paid in Bitcoin. And he says it's changed his life. Why do you like getting paid in Bitcoin?
Lo prefiero porque igual de una manera u otra el Bitcoin, si lo recibo en
So he says the reason he loves it is because if he receives cash in hand, he tends to spend it, right?
That's
cash,
interesting.
Right.
You know,
So it's and he's
I like
he's a
that
young guy,
dynamic,
too.
Chip. Yeah, he's a young guy. I like the dynamic because it's already starting us off in this idea that here you are in a developing nation, even though it's now called Bitcoin Beach Town or Bitcoin Beach, but you have he's used to living basically day to day, dollar to dollar. So he'd earn and spend it all. And that's kind of what he's referencing. But I like this because this is like a, it's we're zooming in kind of on a microcosm here. So of what the significance is of the digital asset space at large in the developing world, because you have people that normally live on fiat, normally go day to day, normally don't have savings, normally don't have any way, they're not banked, they don't have any way to like build up their money reserves in any way, shape, or form, and they have no way to take that money saved and then maybe use it for purchasing, maybe investing in their business, maybe buying a vehicle, maybe buying out whatever it might be, and even leveraging that, and so this is the beginning stages, just like we said in the beginning, Chip, one drop at a time, one sat at a time. You got to start somewhere. And so you take that opening statement that we had and this video, it fits so perfectly into it, because this is it. These are the people on the streets that are benefiting, from this technology. And it's amazing. Let's
go a little bit more here. So, but I just love the whole idea. Here's a young kid. He goes, hey, if I get cash in hand, I spend it, right? So let's listen in.
en mis manos se gasta rápido. En cambio, si lo recibo en Bitcoin, puedo sacar lo que.
So he's saying if he gets paid in Bitcoin, because he'll spend the cash fast, but if he gets paid in Bitcoin, he can use what he needs.
Necesito y dejo aguardado un poco.
And then he saves the rest, right? So it's exactly what you were saying, Jeff. And you hadn't seen this before, right?
I haven't seen this. No.
But it's amazing how you connected all the principles. That's Jeff sort of the kind of gets it on a different level. I just watched it once, but it's amazing the way he's looking at this.
En esa forma puedo mantenerme ahorrando y gastando lo necesario.
You're saying this way, he only spends the money that he has to spend, forces him to want to save the rest. So when he's watching that ride up on the Bitcoin, he's seeing his potential wealth growing. Right now, you have fiat currency, you spend it, you get it, you spend it, you save a little bit of it, it doesn't grow.
No.
So there's the important thing.
I think so too. Now, people are commenting like this one. The video is kind of overlaid. It's kind of interesting how it's but he says here in 10 years, he would have paid $1,000 for a banana. I mean, that's true. That could be the case. But, we have to remember in this situation, he's getting paid in Bitcoin. Right. So his Bitcoin is increasing in value above the dollar that he would have gotten paid in in a fiat, position. And so obviously if Bitcoin pulls back a little, that dollar spent is going to be a little more expensive for him. But as it appreciates, he's making more money. He's worth more money to the dollar, and he's not going to be impacted by the depreciation of his fiat economy all around them. And it's interesting because it's scaling it away from the fundamentals, the economic or financial fundamentals of the country, or the economic fundamentals that are directly impacted by regional influence, or go a little bit further out from regional influence, go to the hegemonic or the superpower influence. So think about it from that perspective. Who gains through the potential oppression of the non-growth or the stagnant growth of certain countries? And many times they're global organizations. We've talked about them: the IMF, the WTO, the World Trade Organization, and the United Nations. Three primary examples that are there supposedly for assistance, but wouldn't exist if all these countries were stable and were living on their own. And there's so much money going through even just those three organizations, that it's in those three organizations to make sure that these other so-called, these other nations that should be sovereign are always reliant on them and always beholden to them. And this, to me, I mean, it's amazing that El Salvador took this direction, Chip. And we're seeing it not just in the news, not just talking about the president did it and why, he was moving in that direction, regardless of what people want to think about corruption, no corruption, whatever. In order to end the corruption, you got to step away from it also. Corruption exists also in support and propped up by some of these external non-government organizations.
But not only that, Jeff, I mean, it's not just him, it's everything that's happening in this little seaside town, this little sort of surf place, because everybody, the merchants benefiting, everybody's working on this sort of economy, right? It's your choice if you want, but she says, well, how do you want to pay? And so it's interesting the way now the merchants benefiting too. So it's kind of interesting. Let's listen in here.
Okay.
What do you use Bitcoin for normally in your life?
Sí, igual lo podemos ocupar para pagar la electricidad, agua, igual poder comprarlo.
So he pays his utility bills with it, his water bills, electricity, uses it to buy things.
Lo básico en la comida, en las tiendas, igual no tengo que estar viajando lejos. Igual lo puedo hacer aquí en las tiendas, más fácil.
Are you worried that you're going to lose all your
So he's saying, hey, look, I can buy food. It's a lot quicker. It's a lot faster.
money? Because tomorrow the price of Bitcoin could go to zero.
Tal vez sí, pero igual en la forma de que uno ha conocido Bitcoin, se pone a estudiarlo, de tarde o temprano va a bajar, de tarde o temprano va a subir.
This guy's smart. He's smart, Jeff. He's like, well, sooner or later, if you study it in the way we know Bitcoin, it's going to go down, but sooner or later it's going to go back up. So they kind of just brace themselves for a little bit. But you see, look, on this level, knowing this, he's so much further ahead than people in a lot of parts of the world that just go, oh, Bitcoin, well, I don't know what it is. Meanwhile, he's living it. He's living his everyday life in this beach town. Yeah,
and here's the other part. There's a fallacy being promoted out there by certain powers that be that Bitcoin is too power hungry, that that it's going to go away because of the power consumption, that it can't be scaled because of power consumption. You get to a point where the power is, or the cost of power is too much. The private industry is going to figure out how to balance it back out again, and so this whole idea that it's too costly, it's getting hyped up way too much, and I think we need to put that to rest. Private market will take care of it. Private market will take care of electric vehicles. You can't ram it down someone's throat when it's too soon. If you're not ready, you're not ready. The market isn't ready. When the market's ready, the market will figure it out. That's why there's entities out there that are already looking for a means to balance out the power and get free power. El Salvador, by the way, has volcano power, which, as we know, is the greatest form of power known to man because it's cool, right? Volcano power, geothermal power. It's amazing. So in that scenario, who cares how expensive, how much power it consumes? We've got volcano power in El Salvador. One of the things that he's saying, Chip, that is so much more meaningful than that extra dollar, that extra megawatt or kilowatt utilized, is this guy is now becoming educated in the ups and downs of an economy. And he's understanding the movement potentially the discussion that he's having, sooner or later it's going to go up, sooner or later it's going to go down. I'm watching it, I'm studying it. When was the last time he studied fiat currency or the inflation of his country? Probably never. He just knew that sometimes it had no value, sometimes it had value, whatever. But now he gets involved. You open up your app, you see your Bitcoin, you look at the Bitcoin market, the education that he's getting and those on that beach and the rest of the people of El Salvador, the education that they're going to get is going to be there for a lifetime. And and again, Chip, Satoshi, sat by sat, drop by drop is the way it starts. And you have to start at the beginning. This is the beginning.
If you forgot step by step, slowly I turn. That's the famous there's three stooges. Step by step, slowly I turn. Right. Anyway,
and so, I do run on volcano power. How great is that? I like that.
Yeah,
Onyx says Jeff runs on volcano power. That's another t-shirt.
That's right. So let's there's not much left of this, but I love this little video clip. It's fantastic.
Igual no tendría, sí entra un temor, pero igual si tiene paciencia uno esperando, puede subir y tal vez obtener ganancias.
Says, yeah, maybe it's scary. Yeah, maybe you could be caught. He goes, but it could go back up and you can make a profit, right? So the thought of holding fiat and watching that buy less and less, the longer you hold it, you know, like it's just like buying a car. Like Mark put that tweet out not too long ago. He said, Mark Phillips put it out. He's like, you drive a car off the lot, you just lost $3,000. Just like that. And fiat, it buys less because of inflation. It buys less and it becomes worth less. So he's like, yeah, it could go back up. Now you could be in profit territory.
How much extra money have you made because of Bitcoin?
Quizás unos $600-700.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So when he said, how much have you made, you know, with Bitcoin, he's saying maybe $600-700, right? So that's huge. You know, not knowing what he gets paid, but knowing the country of origin, that's a pretty big windfall, right? Potentially.
That's right. Man, I love it. You know, and someone just came on. They said, "Oh, I thought this was about XRP." This is about XRP. This is about cryptocurrency. If you want to be, you know, very, you know, kind of centric, if you want to be like a Bitcoin maxi and only focus on Bitcoin, and you think that the whole world's going to exist on Bitcoin, so be it. If you just want to focus on the development and growth of XRP, so be it. But this space will never grow if we don't look at the bigger picture of all the assets and all the projects. Because if there were no other projects, XRP would go away. There would be no XRP. There would be no need for Ripple or RippleNet or any of these other solutions. It would all just kind of implode on themselves.